Mewing is a technique that has the practitioner place their tongue in a certain position in the mouth and is said to positively shape the jawline and the face. In fact, many of the thousands of people that now populate the mewing community believe that this tongue placement, with time, will slowly morph your jaws from being recessed and rounded or asymmetrical to being more advanced forward, chiseled, symmetrical with straighter teeth and hollowed out cheeks, which are all theorized to be major things that make up an attractive face, that kind of stereotypical model look. Back in the 1960s, British orthodontist John Mew created orthotropics, a method of guiding facial growth and tooth position, still controversial to the orthodontic establishment today. It was founded on the premise that environmental factors lead to most cases of crooked teeth and jaw problems and not genetics as is conventionally believed. He theorized that our ancestors all had handsome Herculean jawlines, but somewhere along the line, something went wrong. Many people started dropping their tongue down, dropping their mouth open and mouth breathing. And it's apparently the way we're moving and holding our tongue and cheeks and lips, especially through our growing phases, that is in fact causing all of these issues. More recently, interest in these ideas have skyrocketed across the internet, helped along and popularised by John Mew's son, Mike Mew, of which the concept mewing is named after. Essentially, mewing is the process of placing the tongue back in what's theorised to be its proper position, up on the roof of the mouth, slightly back from the front teeth with the tongue covering the entire palate, or as much as possible, and then keeping your lips sealed, teeth almost or just slightly touching, and breathing through the nose. For anyone that's confused about the placement of the tongue, you can say the NG sound as in sing, and that's where it needs to be, with the tongue covering the rest of the palate. And then the trick is to leave it there as long as possible, slowly turning this placement of the tongue from a conscious action to an unconscious action that sustains itself for life. Initially, this is difficult for many people, especially those with underdeveloped jaws and myself. But with time and persistence, less time if you're younger and your bones are still more malleable, it's supposed to guide your jawline back to its so-called genetic potential. But even though on the surface this thing just seems like it's all about looks, there have also been anecdotal reports of mewing having positive effects on issues like sleep apnea, sinus issues, breathing, swallowing problems, speech disorders, and jaw joint problems, which are all conditions that appear to be positively affected by advancing the maxilla, as in the top jaw, forward in many of those with these issues. And these issues can have a massive impact on our lives, which I, for one, have experienced myself. So, mewing at its core is also about health and well-being, but does it actually work? The first thing we can do is look for the best available evidence. Is there any solid clinical evidence to back up the transformational stories told by those claiming to have morphed into chiseled chads from mewing? Well, the short answer is no, not yet anyway. There's still great debate about whether it's effective. Many would say that the wealth of anecdotal evidence is evidence enough. There are many transformational stories over Reddit and YouTube. Surely it's legit. If there's so many of these stories, and often even with comparison photos to back them up. But people argue that these photos often have different lighting or camera angles or lenses, which are responsible for most, if not all, of the apparent changes. Others argue that the changes are so apparent that anyone who thinks it's just lighting and camera angle changes are just deluding themselves. I mean, it's true that different lighting, camera angles or lenses can make a really big difference to the appearance of a face on a photo. So until we have a body of clinical evidence with clinical measurements documenting a significant change for sustained mewing, although these stories are encouraging, we'll never truly know for sure. Another potential issue is many of the transformational stories are from adolescents and young people who are still in the thick of their growing stages, and it's possible that their faces may have naturally grown into this differing shape. Or perhaps mewing does work, perhaps this tongue posture is crucially important and does create positive changes, but maybe only for those who are still growing, those whose bones are still fairly malleable. However, we do know that it's possible to greatly manipulate the structure of the face without surgery, even into adulthood. Devices like the agar, DNA and ALF appliances, although are still rare, are gaining popularity and are said to expand and push the top jaw forward, much like what mewers are going for. Essentially, when people are doing this in an effort to maximize their looks, they're looking to expand the upper palate and push the maxilla forward, and to also tip it upwards, leading to a wide Hollywood smile, a straighter nose, a forward and more angular jaw. But this is notably difficult to do. However, if mechanical devices that apply pressure over time can do this, it's very tempting to believe that it's probable that pressure exerted by one's own tongue over time can do it too. Unless you have that forward jaw and wide palate to begin with, it's hard to fit that tongue into this space, let alone spread it across the palate. And perhaps the pressures created by the sustained placement will actually move things in a positive direction over time. I guess the question is, how much time? Maybe mewing won't work for most people. It's possible, but maybe it doesn't have solid clinical evidence yet because it takes so much time and many people lack the discipline and dedication needed to get the habit going and move through the pain and sustain it. And if you can build the habit and sustain it, and you do have the discipline, perhaps gradual changes over many months or years are possible. So, am I going to try it? Yes, I am. I started mewing a few days ago, and these first few days have been tough, with a fair bit of discomfort in the pain in the neck and the face. But it's already got a lot easier, and I'm hoping it will become an unconscious habit soon. The reason why I personally want to do it is to see if it actually works, and to see if it has a positive effect on my breathing. Somewhere in my mid-20s, I picked up a mouth breathing habit as my nose was always blocked from allergies and this deviated septum. I actually had an operation on my nose to open up the airways about 5 years ago. And I remember being in the consultation, they stuck this camera up my nose, which was probably the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And whilst the doctor had it up there, he goes, "Oh." I'm like, "What do you mean, oh?" He's like, "Oh, that's bad. That's really bad." I'm like, "Okay, thanks. Camera out. Surgery it is then." And life-changing surgery it was. But the consultant did say I'd probably have to get it done again at some point, and I want to avoid that if possible. Mouth breathing can lead to all kinds of negative symptoms, and the fact that you're retraining yourself to breathe nasally could be one of the biggest reasons why people benefit from this technique. And I'm also pretty sure I did used to have a lot more of a chiseled jawline in my early 20s when I was, leaner as well and with a wider smile. But I'm pretty sure, my jaw or teeth have collapsed inwards due to all those years of mouth breathing. I consider it possible. And although, I've managed to begin nasal breathing again, practicing mewing has brought attention to the times where I still am mouth breathing, and I can correct it. And of course, we can all strive to improve ourselves inside and out, as long as it doesn't get to an unhealthy obsession. There's elements of our faces and bodies we just have to accept, which once we do, leads us to greater peace anyway. But hopefully it's a habit I can sustain, and if I become apparently more attractive or handsome in the process, well, that would be a nice bonus. You can then see that handsome mug on this channel, where I share strategies for conscious personal growth and guide us into realizing the deeper aspects of ourselves so we can create more of what we want in our lives and have a positive impact on the world. But perhaps I will share a mewing update at some point too, and you can see for yourself if there's been any changes for me, because I'm 34 and my skull is going to be pretty tough to move. So if you want to keep updated, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe, select all on the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any videos helping you with conscious personal growth. Peace.